From inside the fish, Jonah prayed to the Lord his God. He said, "In my distress, I called to the Lord, and he answered me. From deep in the realm of the dead, I called for help, and you listened to my cry. You hurled me into the depths, into the very heart of the seas, and the currents swirled about me, and your waves and breakers swept over me. I said, I have been banished from your sight, yet I will look again toward your holy temple. The engulfing waters threatened me, the deep surrounded me, seaweed wrapped around my head. To the roots of the mountains I sank down, the earth beneath me barred me in forever. But you, Lord my God, brought my life up from the pit. When my life was ebbing away, I remembered you, Lord, and my prayer rose to your holy temple. Those who cling to worthless idols turn away from God's love for them. But I, with shouts of grateful praise, will sacrifice to you. What I have vowed, I will make good. I will say, salvation comes from the Lord. And the Lord commanded the fish, and it vomited Jonah onto dry land. Then the word of the Lord came to Jonah a second time. Go to the great city of Nineveh and proclaim to it the message I give you. Jonah obeyed the word of the Lord and went to Nineveh. Now Nineveh was a very large city. It took 3 days to go through it. Jonah began by going a day's journey into the city, proclaiming, 40 more days and Nineveh will be overthrown. The Ninevites believed God. A fast was proclaimed, and all of them, from the greatest to the least, put on sackcloth. When Jonah's warning reached the king of Nineveh, he rose from his throne, took off his robes, covered himself with sackcloth, and sat down in the ashes. This is the proclamation he issued in Nineveh. By the decree of the king and his nobles, do not let people or animals, herds or flocks taste anything. Do not let them eat or drink, but let people and animals be covered with sackcloth. Let everyone call urgently on God. Let them give up their evil ways and their violence. Who knows? God may yet relent and with compassion turn from his fierce anger, so that we will not perish. When God saw what they did and how they turned from their evil ways, he relented and did not bring on them the destruction he had threatened. Okay, so he's inside a fish for 3 days, traveling around, everything's swarming. I'm sure the fish got hungry, probably ate something a couple times, and he decides to pray to God. Right? You have a lot of time to think, because he didn't have an iPhone with him, no iPad, no TV, no video games, no books, just a lot of time to think about what he had done and how he had disobeyed God. So he prays to God, because he's at his lowest point, right? I don't know if you have hard times in your life, I know I do, and it's in those times that we can call out to God, and he does hear us. So that's what Jonah does. He says, I'm sorry for what I did. I will make good on the promise. I told you I'd follow you and do what you said, and I'm ready to obey now. So then God says, great. Tells the fish to spit him up, gets thrown up all over dry land. Now, the Bible doesn't say that he washed himself off. I don't know if he took a shower or not. I'm hoping that he did. But then he goes to Nineveh, right? And it's a huge city, lots of buildings. It takes 3 days just to walk from one end of the city to the other. So he starts with 1 day. He says, hey everybody, in 40 days, your city is going to be destroyed. So he followed through with what he told God he was going to do. That's not a nice message to be giving to somebody, right? Telling them that their city is going to be destroyed, that's not great. But they didn't get mad at him. They listened to him, and they believed that God was talking through him, that he really was a messenger of the real Lord God. And they were sorry for what they did. Now, I think it's important to realize here that Nineveh wasn't a city that usually worshiped God. And they were living and doing their own thing, right? Almost as if they believed that God didn't see or didn't care what they were doing. But he did. So much so that he sent Jonah to go deliver the message. And I think it's easy sometimes in our life to think, well, when I'm at school, God doesn't really want me to be a Christian there. He only cares if I'm doing it at home with my parents or like at church. But God does care. He really does. He wants you to be consistent, and he wants you to live in a way that honors him all the time, because he always sees, right? You can't run away from God. Jonah learned that. And you can't live your own way without God seeing it. The Ninevites learned that. And they were sorry. And they repented. They cried out to God. They did a fast. They didn't eat or drink anything. They sat in sackcloth. They took off all their fancy clothes and jewelry, and they made God their priority. And they said, I'm so sorry. We have done wrong by you. And they were asking for God to relent, but they didn't know if he would or not. They said, he still might. So they had their 40 days notice. And instead of continuing to do their own thing for 40 days, they stopped immediately. And they sat in itchy sackcloth and dust. And they said they were sorry, and they called out to God. And God heard them and forgave them. There is nothing, absolutely nothing, that you can do that will make God stop loving you. There is nothing you can do that will make him love you more or less. There's nothing that he will not forgive you for, because he loves you and he wants to have a relationship with you. Next week, we're going to finish off the book of Jonah. There's one chapter left. And it's again about Jonah's heart and his attitude, and about these people that decided to listen to the message that he gave. So I really hope that you will turn with me